Hey everyone, welcome to the Promethean Tides. I'm General, and as always, I'm joined by Breaker. What's going on, Breaker?
The economic forum will conquer the earth. No one will own anything except for us, and I guarantee you, we will be very, very happy.
Yeah, that's pretty much what they sound like. They have a weird accent over at the WEF, but so I was looking through some of the World Economic Forum videos. They have a YouTube channel. And I was looking through some of them and watching some of them, and honestly, a couple of them I found to be a little bit nightmarish. There was one that I saw. It was on tackling disinformation, and one of the key guest speakers was the vice president of CNN, because of course, when you want to talk about the people who are tackling disinformation, the most trustworthy source of news is it's going to be CNN. I mean, fuck yeah. In general, I think that I'm opposed to a lot of what the World Economic Forum, what their positions are. They essentially, in my perspective, if I could kind of summarize them, they're a big elitist institution that cares the most about controlling things economically, and also making sure that we don't all catastrophically die from climate change. And those are the things that they're really concerned about. And unfortunately for the rest of us, in order to combat climate change, well, your entire life has to get worse, and also please stop having children. So, in general, I'm not a big fan of the WEF. But I found this one video, and we're going to go through it because I think it's actually something that's worthwhile. So that's what the topic of this video is going to be. But I did just want to go through this quick little excerpt from a video from the WEF that just kind of highlights what they are overall. Again, what we're going to be reviewing is actually kind of off the beaten path. I think it's actually kind of neat, but this is more traditional WEF.
So many people have been speaking about the climate crisis. So many things have been put on paper. But the real question is, why is it that we're still not acting at the scale and speed that is necessary?
The extreme weather events that the scientists have long connected to the climate crisis are becoming far more frequent and far more
They got Al Gore. They got Al Gore. Fuck yeah.
Yeah, by the way, we're going to have to pause this occasionally and chop it up because I have a feeling that the particular people behind this video, if you're playing the video from the official site and everything, I have a feeling that they're very litigious about how their content is used. And they might not appreciate certain people, i.e. you and me, that tend to be rather disparaging of them overall utilizing this in any way, shape, or form. And don't you think they can't know about that?
I mean, true.
So we have to give adequate criticism and commentary and pause this an adequate number of times because they'll use any excuse, and YouTube is on their side, not ours.
Of course.
Never forget that.
Of course, yeah. We'll do it all above board. Absolutely. All right.
destructive.
For 150 years, we built up a world based on the assumption that we can exploit the planet for free, and it translates to very dramatic impacts happening right as we speak.
The climate crisis.
Okay, like, basically they're just showing footage of hurricanes, and they're like, look, climate is coming for all of us. The big climate monster, it's going to devour your children. Look at these images of hurricanes, because, I mean, shit, Breaker, I don't know if you know anything about this, but I'm pretty sure that this is actually true. Hurricanes did not exist until I think it was like after 2000. Like, I think it was sometime after Al Gore released An Inconvenient Truth. That's when we first started noticing the phenomenon of hurricanes. That's actually the first time they ever existed.
Well, I'm fairly confident that you're just fucking with me right now, and you basically know that that's a load of horse crap. Okay. The thing about this is, like, you're a biologist with a particular interest in evolution, if I'm not wrong, and having a particular interest in evolution means that you have a particular interest, probably, in a fair amount of paleontology and archaeology and these ancient fossils that have been found throughout the world of these various now extinct creatures and life forms of all kinds. Now, I want you to consider the climate in the day and age where things like super mega massive ferns the size of your entire body existed and grew rampantly across the land.
Yeah, I think during the time of the dinosaurs, right? For instance,
and giant lizards the size of a house.
Yeah, exactly. During the time of the dinosaurs, there was number one, there was more oxygen in the atmosphere, but also number two, there was more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. I think it was like way more, like fucking off the top of my head, I don't remember exactly, but it was like 3 or 4 or 5 times as much CO2 as we currently have in 2022, and I'm not sure how it's possible, but apparently life wasn't wiped out. So
Not only was it not wiped out, it was like fucking huge. It was life on steroids. It was life on like cheater dev kit settings where you turn up all the game's internal settings to the over the maximum and watch the fucking horror show and comedy ensue with how crazy the fucking game gets after that. That's what biological life was in those day and age. And it also means that the vast majority of the world was probably mostly tropical.
Oh yeah. There were no ice caps. There was no, the North and the South Pole were not frozen. I think at like any point in the year. It was warm and it was very humid. And because of the overall warmth and humidity of the planet, you actually had lots and lots of lush forests. And by the way, you know what plants crave even more than power thirst or whatever the Idiocracy reference is? They crave carbon dioxide. They really love that shit. So when you have more of it in the atmosphere, it actually allows plants to grow more and also to be able to grow in more arid conditions because they don't have to open their stomata as much to breathe.
So for something like a fern, which these days is like the fern leaves are roughly like a foot long from the ferns I've personally observed, for a fern to be the size of an outbuilding, like the size of an addition to the average American house, that was hella carbon in that fucking atmosphere.
I mean, to be fair though, I mean, a fern the size of a house actually isn't that impressive. What's really impressive is like the shit that we have nowadays. This new technology with like gymnosperms and angiosperms. Bro, the fucking tree game is wild. You ever seen like a redwood? Those things are massive and they exist today. Fucking technology is crazy, bro. I don't know who invented those things, but they were ambitious.
Yeah, there's old black and white photos that you can look up of when they were first cutting down the forest throughout America. And you can see these massive trees that there's like 2 men standing on either side of them. And when they cut the tree down, it was so wide that it was taller than a fucking tractor trailer. That's how big those old growth trees were in America. Not that long ago, like a few hundred years ago.
Man, like, I'm thinking about how much shit you could build with just one of those trees. I mean, you can build you could build an entire village worth of houses with just one tree. Those things are so big.
Yeah, you know what? They probably did. And they built massive fucking wooden ships that sailed across the fucking oceans with those trees too.
Well, I mean, the redwoods are an American thing. I don't think they're native to Europe, but yeah, but they did build boats out of trees. Humans like trees because we can chop them down and build things out of them. Wood is a really good fucking building material. But,
and one last point I'll make before we move on with the video is that you also have to consider in those days there was like massive geothermal and volcanic activity everywhere. Like volcanoes were fucking all over the place, and I guarantee you those in that day and age were belching out more sulfur and carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide and all types of noxious chemicals than your average coal-fired power plant produces in a fucking year. One of those volcanoes, when active, belches all of that out within the course of a single fucking day.
Oh yeah, no, volcanoes they can definitely have a major impact on the climate, and in fact, sometimes throughout history, they've had such a big impact that you actually do see an extinction event, of which I think we know of 7 major extinction events. Of course, the asteroid that blew up the dinosaurs 65 million years ago and ended the Cretaceous period was one of those extinction events. But I think most weren't caused by asteroids. It was actually due to tectonic activity, like volcanoes.
You know what? In recent history, actually, I think this happened. People can look this up. Back in the late 1800s, I think this was, believe it or not. There was this massive volcano called Krakatoa. Now, some people might immediately think of the SpongeBob reference where Squidward goes, Krakatoa! And his head fucking blows up. But, yeah, Krakatoa was a super volcano that, when it exploded, like, not even, like, roughly 200 years ago, when that volcano exploded, it was so powerful that it literally put a dent in the side of the Earth and affected the Earth's rotation, and that dent is still basically there to this day, and it can be observed from space.
Huh. I actually didn't know that. That's pretty nifty. But...
Yeah, that's how powerful. It literally knocked the Earth off its axis and created like a new, like, seasonal changes in and of itself.
Right, so I guess the point being here is that really, humans, at least currently, there's no way that I agree that we're causing damage to the environment, we're doing pollution and whatnot, and I'm against pollution, as I've said before, but we're not going to end nature. We will end ourselves long before we end nature, or life on Earth, because it turns out that life on Earth is really fucking hardy, and it's really difficult to kill it. Like, it survives, and it's really good at that. Anyway, let's get back to the video.
This is a threat multiplier, which means it exacerbates existing inequities in our society.
The inequalities,
the impacts are felt most deeply
Anything
by
but that.
Black, Indigenous, and communities of color.
Of course!
Of course. Of course.
Why do you hate black people, right, Anna? That's right, Jake!
Of course. Yeah, no, we gotta... Look, here's what we have to understand, right? All of these, for whatever reason, all of these political, like, these single issue groups, where it's like the people who care about climate change and the people who care about people's skin color, and the people who care about going back to a feudal era where you can actually have most people be plebs, and then you have like a ruling class of nobility. Like all of these different political groups, they've all been tied together to become one united force of evil, effectively. And that's, I don't know exactly why that's happened, but it has happened. And yeah, it's like an empire of ideology, right? Like, whatever this thing is, it's like an empire, and it takes over ideologies. It just moves in, takes them over, and just kind of brings it into the fold of the larger empire of whatever this fucking ideology is. And it's really impressive how well it's been able to do this. You know, back in 2015, I didn't think that really anything was going to be able to kill feminism, and then whatever this left ideology is, it moved in, invaded feminism, split it up, and then made it about intersectional trans things, and it was able to kill feminism, which I thought was really impressive.
Not only did it technically didn't quote unquote kill feminism. What it actually did was something a bit more impressive. It literally turned, you know, the crazy bedroom feminists that all the YouTube talking heads were bitching and moaning about for all those years back in from 2014, like the Gamergate days, like all those people. It turned those people into conservatives.
Yeah, because now they're all the people who didn't join up with the ideology, they became TERFs, and now they're considered to be like reactionary conservatives. And then the people who did join, they got subsumed, and now they can't argue for women's issues anymore. They have to argue for trans women's issues, and hope that by promoting the trans women, they will help the women. But of course they won't.
Yeah, the frickin' like tradition. I say traditional. The liberal feminist paragon, otherwise known as J.K. Rowling, author, you might have heard of her, author of the famous Harry Potter book series and related intellectual properties, D. Like, she's basically now like female Hitler, I guess, because she thinks women exist.
Oh man, what a hot take! I don't know if that's appropriate for YouTube Breaker. Come on, let's keep it family friendly here. What are you saying? Women exist? Come on, trans women exist.
Well, I specifically said, yeah, like J.K. Rowling, of course, the vile, like, basically left-hand woman of Hitler. Of course, she and all of her vile conservatism would think that trans women aren't valid, and you know, here at this podcast, like, we strongly disagree with her trans exclusionary views.
Yes, we do. All right, let's keep going.
We're living through an explosion of inequality. We need to remember we're on the same planet, and this is the planet that we need to make sustainable for the whole of humanity.
Climate change is impacting food security as well as political stability in many nations around the world.
I mean,
5 years ago, there were 80 million people marching towards starvation. That number jumped to 135 million. What caused the...
Okay, hold on. Hold the phone for a second, right? I just look, okay, I haven't done like a shit ton of research into this, okay? So I am just speaking off the cuff here. But I'm pretty sure that the areas that they're talking about, right? Like sub-Saharan Africa, certain parts of the Middle East, there's been starvation occurring in those places for a while. And in fact, you know, he's, you know, they just said, oh, you know, like he says right here, what caused the jump in the levels of people that are at the brink of starvation, right? Well, okay, check this out. I can think of some things besides just climate change that might cause that jump, right? So for instance, let's say that a wealthy first world nation that doesn't exist in a desert, let's take like America for instance. Let's say that America starts sending a shit ton of food over to Africa, and then you know, obviously that basically puts all of the farmers that would exist there out of business because they can't compete with free. No matter how efficient your farming methods become, you can't compete with just absolute free food. And so then you reduce the amount of farming that they do there, but also you increase their population, and now it becomes like very unsustainable. But you know, the U.S. and other first world nations have been doing this for the quote unquote greater good, and now it's completely fucked Africa. Like maybe I'm just putting this out there. Maybe that could have actually been like a cause of starvation that's happening. It's the exact type of top-down control of the elites thinking that they know best who actually make shit worse. I would argue that's probably an explanation as to why that's happening. Like, you know, it kind of like an idea that would come out of the WEF itself. I don't know. It's just I'm just thinking. I'm just pointing that out. That's all.
You know, I'm actually old enough to remember when the progressive lefties were complaining about things like capitalist exploitation of Africa and blood diamonds and mineral mines and all these things. Now, you'll hear a vocal contingent of them still doing that, but when you look at like the big movers and shakers of these like progressive globalist elites, the main thing that they've all seemed to switch gears into is climate change. Now, the left's been complaining about that in various forms for the past like fucking century practically. But it's weird how they all seem to like coalesce and have this general consensus around this one particular issue that is this extremely broad, like existential, affecting the entire globe and all of humanity. They kind of gravitated away from like more localized examples of quote unquote exploitation.
Yeah, well, it wasn't serious enough, right? Like, ultimately, you can only give so many shits about some village that's being exploited to mine diamonds. So what they did was they created the ultimate boogie monster, right? Like, it's gonna kill everyone. Literally everyone on the entire planet, every single human. In fact, all life on Earth is going to perish. If we you know,
there's a reason. Like, I have a theory about this. Actually, the main reason this is because another thing the left has been doing for the past roughly 100 years is pushing society in a more, not merely a more secular direction, but explicitly a more cynical and nihilistic direction. Like, you look at all your like favorite comedy over the past 50-ish years, and what has most of that been consisting of? It's been about like criticizing and tearing down and not really building anything up afterward. Is like maybe this vague reflection that you might experience after a good belly laugh at about how stupid George Bush is. But the weird thing that also happened is, by making people more cynical, nihilistic, and ironic, and drifting more into postmodernism, the lefties actually started caring less about things and people in general. So they were back into this weird paradoxical corner where, in order to mobilize lefties, they kind of have to go balls to the walls, crank up all of their talking points to 12, and break the knobs off on every issue to where they become this existential fucking threat to even make people start to give a shit. That's how cynical, nihilistic, and ironic that they've made themselves, to the point where they have to do shit like this now to even begin to make them give a shit.
Yeah, exactly. The whole world is going to end, and all life will be extinguished, and also the president of the United States is Hitler, but orange, and everyone is a literal Nazi. You're right. You gotta make everything the ultimate bad guy. Just all the time. You gotta one up yourself all the time. I don't know. It's almost like a Ponzi scheme of making people worry about shit. And at a certain point, it becomes no longer sustainable, because, like, right now we're at Nazis and the world is ending. How do you like one up that? I don't know.
There's a very good example of this in the show Rick and Morty, if anyone remembers this. There was an episode of Rick and Morty where basically the ending is where Rick and Summer like both take these scientifically engineered steroids and become like buff muscle freaks, and the whole end bumper while they roll the credits in this episode, like the final scene, is Rick and Summer going around and beating up various like allegories of the evil right-wingers with their super roided muscle bodies, and they're just laughing about this and taking great glee and joy and even pride in the fact that they've mutated and enhanced themselves beyond normal human capacities just so they can beat up these evil right-wingers. Whereas previously in this episode, and the tone of Rick and Morty in general, is simultaneously this nihilistic, I destroyed an entire universe and turned everyone on Earth into a Lovecraftian Cronenberg abominations, and nothing really matters because there's infinitely universes, and whenever I fuck up, I could just go to another one. But I strangely care about these weird fucking political issues suddenly. That's the strange juxtaposition of the left encapsulated in that one scene.
Oh man, you know what? That's a good point. I never even thought about it, but Rick is like a he's a lot of Hitlers. Like think about
He's like fucking. Not only is he himself like Hitler on crack. Like, there's a whole planet of Ricks that are as bad and some worse than he is.
Yeah, like, how many people has Rick killed, ultimately? Like...
Billions, untold billions on multiple planets. He actually has an entire universe in his fucking car battery.
Right, yeah, no, he's totally down with enslavement, he's totally down with genocide, and he's like, oh, yeah, but that Hitler guy, he was bad. Like, yeah.
And these random like red hat wearing allegory Trump supporters waving these signs, they're like this ultimate evil that I now have to like get roided up with Summer and beat the crap out of. While I just got done enslaving an entire fucking universe in a car battery, destroying an entire planet and making them wish they were dead, making them into like Cronenberg abominations that pray every day for the sweet place of death. But I've got all these things, but no, I need to beat up a fucking MAGA Republican.
I mean, it just makes sense. All right.
I guess it does. Back to the fucking bullshit.
Conflict, like in Ukraine, compounded
not the Ukraine
shocks.
Oh my god.
No one is as vulnerable to climate change as farmers are. If you talk transformation, the first thing they want to know is, what must I do on my farm?
We know that this transition will require a fast adoption of a lot of new technologies. And the question today is how to find the appropriate way to find...
We gotta look. The answer is that we have to set up the cricket farms. Okay. The fact of the matter is that, look, there's too many people on the earth. Not everyone can afford to have a home with a yard. In fact, not everyone is going to be able to have an apartment. Okay. If you're lucky, you'll have like a pod, right? And look, okay. There will be we'll still have grain. You'll have your corn. You'll have your high fructose corn syrup, you'll have your wheat, but when it comes to protein, look, the fact of the matter is that we're going to have to set up cricket farms. You're going to have to be eating crickets, maybe some ants. That's where you're going to get your protein. So that's how it's going to be, okay? We are facing a disaster, and that's the only way that we can possibly survive all of this. And these are facts, okay? So we all have to just accept that. And by the way, if you question that, then you're a threat. So you better not question that. All right.
Finance this technology.
To put a number around it, it's an extra $2.5 to $3 trillion a year of additional finance that we have to find in order to get those emissions down.
Financial institutions have a lot of roles to play to bring the advice and provide the financing to make these transitions happen.
Thank you. Yeah, dude, I cannot, the financial institutions, they're going to be so important in this, because, I inherently trust a lot of these large financial institutions. I think that, something like BlackRock, they're great. I think that they really care about the human race. And by the way, when it comes to BlackRock, Larry Fink, he's the founder and CEO of BlackRock, and he is he's a member of the World Economic Forum. He's basically been a lifelong supporter of the Democratic Party. Died in the Wool Democrat. and he also cares a lot about climate change. So, you know, these are important people that we have to learn to trust and work with, because they're going to be building the future. They're going to be building our future. Okay, it's not up to you to build your future. It's up to these people to build your future. Okay, is this similar maybe to like medieval Europe feudalism? Maybe. Okay, but it's for your own good. So just trust in the system. All right.
Younger generations are demanding a sense of purpose. They want to look at companies and say, I am investing with you all for this reason.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Look, the purpose of a business in the modern day era is not to generate profits, okay? That's what angel investors exist for. The purpose of a company is to just espouse all of the virtue signaling stuff that they can. If they can signal a virtue, they have to do it, because that's actually how you produce a good company that generates money and is good for the shareholder, but also good for humanity and the environment. It's all about just like, you know, getting your PR person to go onto Twitter and say that Nike supports Black Lives Matter. That's the most important thing that companies can be doing right now. That's how you energize young people. This is super relatable and definitely not out of touch whatsoever. Fucking A. Wonderful stuff right here.
You know what? I will say something about this. You know, I want everyone to be aware and to keep in mind that if Trump hadn't won in 2016, this would all be happening much more gradually over the course of many decades. Like, we wouldn't be seeing or hearing about most of this, like, extremely ratcheted up shit until, like, 2050 at the earliest, more than likely. It's fucking Trump upset this whole fucking apple cart so badly that they all dropped their fucking masks and went into panic mode and were like tear down Trump every single day for 4 years. Like, all fucking media, all fucking, like, entertainment, everything was just, like, laden, oozing with anti-Trump sentiment fucking everywhere. Anti-conservative sentiment, even the most mildest milquetoast form of conservative you could imagine. They were, like, basically upgraded to Hitler 2.0, all of them. That's the one big thing that fucked up all of their shit. And that's probably the best thing that Trump, by proxy, not even intentionally did, was just make these people go insane to the point where they have to ratchet all their shit up to the absolute maximum, and it becomes much more easy to see, and they turn the heat on the stove up so fucking high that the frogs are starting to jump out of the fucking pot, and they're like, it's too fucking hot in here. They didn't want the frogs to notice, but now they're all noticing, and they have to clamp down as fast as possible. Get the lid on that pot before all the frogs jump out.
That's right. Look, Trump was a speed bump in their plans, but you know they already had this shit planned out like 50 years ahead. So this speed limit means that they gotta accelerate their plans, you know, at least by 4 years to make up for this fucking speed bump that Trump was. Fuck that guy. And yeah,
even if they'd gotten like an establishment Republican, like if Jeb Bush, like low energy Jeb, please clap. If he would have won on the Republican side, they wouldn't have had as much of a problem. Yeah, because he's in all the right people's pockets.
Yeah, no, they would have loved for Jeb to win. He was their favorite. They were like, look, Jeb or Hillary, doesn't matter. We'll take either. Either the Clinton dynasty or the Bush dynasty. We're chill with either. We know how to work with them. Like, our plans will be on track as long as one of them gets in. Fuck yeah. And then that asshole fucking Trump got in, and he really took a steaming dump on their well-laid plans. And it was just really rude of Trump. And I feel like we should all admonish Trump for doing that. You know, like what
the two worst things about Trump are, like, number one, he said all the quiet clandestine shit that the establishment Republicans are supposed to do this eternal tap dance around all the time and never really like put too fine a point on it. He just said all that shit extremely pointedly all the fucking time, sometimes to his detriment, but he just like said that shit. And number two, he's also like independently wealthy to a degree where he didn't need any of their fucking money. And those two things together, like, from their perspective, represent an existential threat and an ideological paradigm shift that not only could they not allow, they had to shift the gear as far as possible to the highest degree of reverse, away from whatever the fuck that was, as fast as possible. And that's why all this shit just went from relatively crazy and kind of fucked up with your bedroom feminists and crazy weirdos on Tumblr to, like, now the Tumblr shit is just the news.
Well, right, and I mean, at the end of the day, Trump is clearly a bad guy, because I mean he wasn't willing to work with the establishment, right? Like how the fuck? What I mean, look, basically in America you have two sides, right? And we're kind of like approaching a civil war between these two sides, right? On one hand, you have like the pro citizen like populist, the pro American citizen populist, right? And then on the other hand, you have the pro global elite. And you know, the thing is that humanity, we need to come together and hold hands. Okay, we don't need that sort of division. Why is it that you would be promoting like a pro-American citizen populism, right? Like, why would you do that when you could be promoting globalism for the elites, right? Like, it's obviously backwards to be like, why would you? It doesn't make any sense, right? Like, why would you be pro-citizen when you could be supporting someone like a Charles Schwab, right? When you could be supporting someone like a Larry Fink, you know, like or Bill Gates, right? Like, obviously these people, they have our best interests in mind. Like, why should we be actively supporting the plebs in fucking America? Like, why the fuck do we give a shit about them? That is fundamentally what Trump did incorrectly, right? And that's why he's a bad person. That's why he's literally Hitler, because what we all know about Hitler was that he was very much anti-establishment and very much pro freedom. He was very much pro, like, whatever Germany's version of the Second Amendment was. He was very much pro, like, helping out your average citizen, and getting the state out of the economy and making it less
Wait a minute.
Wait.
This doesn't sound historically accurate at all.
Wait. Oh, sorry. I got mixed up there. All right, let's keep watching.
With the upcoming two COPs taking place in Africa and the Middle East, we have this tremendous opportunity to put emerging markets at the forefront of our collective response to climate change.
For international trade has to be part of the solution. How do we...
I just want to point out, putting the third world at the forefront of your environmental economic plans, what you're doing is you're saying, hey, America was like able to use a shit ton of fossil fuels in order to like build up its economy, and I mean it's actually really effective, right? Like oil and coal are like really awesome technologies when you're trying to transition from like a third world nation to like a first world nation. They're like really fucking important. But the thing is that we've all decided that we don't want people to use those anymore. We don't want people to use those anymore, so we're going to pull up the ladder and we're just going to tell Africa and certain parts of the Middle East that they're just not allowed to use those things because fuck you. Find another way to get yourself out of third world nation status. You know, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You know, just fucking why can't Africa just build solar panels and fucking wind turbines? Why do they need to use fucking coal? You know, like fucking this is great. Like this is so good. I love everything about the WEF. They're just so fucking. The best way to manage anything is top down. You basically, I think this is something that communist China got really right. Like this is why Mao was such a genius. You take a completely top down approach. One guy sets the agenda because he has all the information and he's basically infinitely good and infinitely knowledgeable. And then, what happens in China? They kill all the sparrows. It turns out that the sparrows were actually not causing the issues in agriculture. Turns out that the sparrows were actually eating the bugs that were causing the issue with agriculture. But the thing is that Mao, he noticed that there were a lot of sparrows around farms that were failing. And so they made sure they got rid of the sparrows. And that is how things should be run, right? We have to all understand that you're not smart. If you're a small business owner, you're not smart. You're not good enough to be able to understand the economy, to understand what the world needs, okay? It's not like the invisible hand of the market is going to, fucking figure shit out, as historically it has. We need a centralized leadership to tell us how to live our lives, to solve these problems for us, because they know more, and also they're more intellectually gifted, and they're more morally gifted, and they're more ethically gifted, and they're better than you, okay? Just you have to understand that, all right? And a lot of people don't understand that. It's very frustrating. So let's keep going.
Okay, let's keep going for a bit.
We all get together to talk about a global carbon price that can guide us and help us to decarbonize the world.
The solutions are there. What we need is governments to regulate, to invest, and we need business to act with values.
I love it when my business acts with values as opposed to being a business that is incentivized by making money. The best thing in the world is when they act with political incentives and quote unquote values, right? I mean,
businesses acting with values. Before we started the show, we were kind of talking about that, and that I don't necessarily disagree with that sentiment, but I have a sneaking suspicion that the type of quote unquote values that she's alluding to are not necessarily the type of values that would be best exercised for these types of things, if you get my meaning. And overall, to throw these people a bit of a bone here, I know we like shitting on this type of content, but what you were saying before, it kind of weirdly resonates when they were mentioning that the third world has to be like the new emerging economy into the future. I think there's a degree of truth to that, but for reasons that they're not entirely transparent about that.
They're going to get into a middle income trap, and they're going to become, like China did, the manufacturers of the world, but not actually be able to get themselves out. It's called the middle income trap. It's something that China is facing right now, and it's literally a way that first world nations can exploit these third world nations while investing into their economies and making them slightly better well off, but effectively it's not none of this is actually compassionate. It's like, here's the thing. A corporation...
Well, compassion to these people is just a useless throwaway term they use to stimulate the spinal cords of the breeder and feeder class. That anytime you hear compassion come out of these people's mouth, it's like it has a political bite and edge behind it.
Of course. But here's the thing that we all have to realize, right? Fundamentally, and now I'm being serious, because I was being very sardonic earlier, but I'm being serious now. Fundamentally, take any organization of people, right? A government, a corporation, a union, any organization of people. The more people that you put into it, the more bureaucratic and structured it becomes. And when you put enough people into it, it loses all of its humanity, right? There is no humanity in the corporation that is Amazon. There might actually be some humanity left in the individual that is Jeff Bezos. But when it comes to the corporation that is Amazon, there is no humanity. This is what happens when you create these larger and larger structures that are filled with more and more people. You would think that the amount of humanity would increase, but no, it decreases, and they all inevitably end up becoming sociopathic, and I mean that. Like the institution, the organization, it does not have compassion. It cares about the bottom line. It cares about getting the best shit for itself. and it's very inhumane when it's doing this kind of stuff. Like I remember I was seeing this thing where it's like if you work at Amazon, like once every 30 minutes this like thing will pop up on your computer, and it's like a 30-second like meditation thing where you have to recite like corporate linguistic mantras like I embrace the good and I want to work well with people, and like this fucking like synergistic management solution fucking bullshit. And that's because this is what happens, because when you get shit that is decided by a committee, it's no longer human. And so I just want us to keep that in mind, that when it comes to this idea that we want corporations to have values, they do not have these values. In the same way that a sociopath does not have the value of caring about orphan children. These corporations do not care. They will just use whatever the value is in order to shield themselves from the potentially legitimate evils that they are actually doing. I just want us to keep that all in mind, and also understand that this World Economic Forum is basically that, but like abstracted even more. So this isn't just like a group of people that are creating an organization. This is an organization that is made out of the people that are the heads of those sociopathic organizations, and those heads of those organizations have kind of had to become sociopaths in order to become CEOs of that, and then they've all like joined together to make this one economic forum that is potentially the most sociopathic, and then it goes back to, you know, the people, the plebs, you know, the serfs, the peasants, and it goes, hey, we're doing this for your best interest. We care. We have values. We care about so much. But you can tell how fake it is, right? Like just you as a person, because you do potentially still have some humanity left in you. You look at this, and it actually falls into the valley. What the fuck? The valley where something
the uncanny
valley. Yeah. This video, it's basically the uncanny valley of virtue signaling. It's like it's close enough that it looks like it might be a thing, but also it's definitely fucking not. And I feel like at least myself, I can just kind of sense that it's so inauthentic, but it's so trying to be authentic that it just creeps me out, because it ends up being in that uncanny valley.
It's funny that you bring that up, because Sargon on the Lotus Eaters actually did a whole video about this concept called the progressive skin suit. And the thumbnail for the video is literally Leatherface in the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And his point in the video is like, all of these like progressive things, like you see in the entertainment industry, like progressive woke Star Wars with the epic Mary Sue lead actress, all these types of things, and even more serious things like what we're alluding to now. Like, they put on this blatantly obvious costume. If someone tore your mother's flesh off and wore it as a suit, but it was like a 6'5", 300-pound man underneath the stretched skin suit of your mother,
I actually
and they just sit down at the table.
That was literally a nightmare I had like a couple of years ago.
Yeah. Exactly. This is like strangely prophetic, isn't it? And imagine if that person masquerading as your mother that's clearly a fucking fake just sit down at the dinner table, and they even put on your mother's voice, but with a high-pitched voice like this. I was like, oh, hello, General Chief. Are you ready for breakfast today? Ho, ho, ho. And it was just fucking Leatherface riding your mother's flesh. You would have more than a few questions, and you would be relatively freaked out by this, but there's like, no, it's me, your mother, this is all completely normal. And they never broke the character, but it was so blatantly fucking transparent, it just made you sick.
That's... Yeah, you know what? That is basically what we're seeing. I think that humans have evolved a certain amount of humanity, and then you run across something that is like, hey, yo, bro, I'm like totally human. I mean, like, forget the fact that like the wax is melting off my face in the sun. No, I'm a fucking human. Don't worry about it. Like that's what
Poor
this is.
Zuckerberg. That's why he had to be in the shade during that barbecue video. He couldn't get too close to the grill, or his wax would melt off and expose the Terminator face.
All right, okay, let's go.
History will look at us, people, politicians, corporate leaders. These times requires not only solutions but speed.
There is nowhere else to look than the mirror. We are the ones that need to do this.
The leaders, the politicians, the corporate leaders.
Yeah, one thing I'll also tell, like one major point I want to wrap up with this, is that in a weird way, when they say that the third world will be the new economy, like the middle income trap that you mentioned, that's more of like, yes, that's like the economic side of it and probably like the most pressing issue that all this has. But there's another element to this that you neglected to bring up, which is the advancements in technology that are getting better and better and better at, you notice, like, anecdotally speaking, I recently had a very bizarre experience. And I know it wasn't me that did this because I checked all the records, but a friend of mine called me up on the phone recently, and they said to me, it's like, hey, you called me yesterday, and it was your number on the caller ID, and you left voicemails on my answering machine. And I checked my phone records. I was scratching my head. I was like, wait a minute, I haven't called you in over a month. So I checked my phone records, and there was no calls to that number of my friend from my phone. I even called up the phone company and asked, like, okay, did someone order a SIM card or something and using my number without my knowledge to call people? Is that what's happening? And Verizon sit there for like 30 minutes looking through all the records of my shit, and it's like, no one's ordered any SIM cards, and we can't find on our side anyone that used your number through nefarious means in our system. And then I did a little bit of research into this, and I actually found this bizarre new phenomenon of scam phone callers that can, one, spoof caller ID and make it to where the person on the other side with caller ID actually sees you calling, but it's not you. And even spoof your voice that would be good enough to pass on a garbled, scooped, like, you know when you call someone on the telephone, it doesn't sound like you in real life?
That's creepy as shit, bro.
Yeah, that really happened to me recently. I was like, okay, if you ever get a call from me and they want you to do something stupid like invest in this new cryptocurrency, you know that's not me.
Well,
but just think about that. That's just me, and I'm a nobody. Like, some weird fucking scammer now has the technology to use my phone number and call my friend's number and leave a voice message convincing enough where they call me back the next day to check on me.
Oh shit. Okay, so that one time like 3 weeks ago when you called me up out of the blue on Discord and you were like, "Hey, like you should buy a whole bunch of USD coin." And I was like, wait, no, I don't want to buy USD coin. And then you were like, yo, you have to because, like, it's the most brilliant thing. That wasn't you? Are you serious? Fuck.
Yeah, I've never called you for anything involving cryptocurrency ever, so.
All right.
But yeah, I was like, now what the point I'm getting to with this is, like, the first world is legitimately existentially fucked insofar as, like, the free and open democracy is, like, we kind of laugh sardonically at that for many reasons that we can't mention on YouTube, but you know what I mean. That, like, progressive leftist modern first world is facing an existential threat that will, in my opinion, lead to its ultimate downfall, and that's that this deep fake. If some deep fake scam artist, probably from Calcutta, India or something, is trying to do a crypto scam on my friend or whatever the fuck this was about, just me, a random nobody in the United States, what do you think people with much more resources, with access to equivalent or even obviously more powerful technology than what this random scammer could do with my phone number and voice, what do you think they're going to do when, like, every politicians in all the democratic countries, all of their, like, October surprises or their equivalent thereof, is just going to be them in an orgy with 8-year-olds? And that's going to be every October surprise, and it's going to be so convincing and lifelike, like Tom Hanks in the Polar Express, but beyond the uncanny valley levels where even if you squint, it's like, is that a real video, or is that just a really good fake? This is already underway, and don't think like world governments and political adversaries within our own governmental structures and countries are already doing this and getting this ready to go.
I want to point out something I've been thinking for a while here. It's that all right, since I was like 14 or something, when I first learned about the idea of the technological singularity, I was like, oh shit, that sounds really cool, and I started like looking into it and researching it and looking at the ideas behind it, and to this day, I'm still a believer in the concept of a technological singularity. I think that we are on that path, and we are going to be facing an exponential curve up. It's called a paradigm shift, right? And but it's not a continuous sort of thing. You have essentially a series of punctuated equilibrii. I think equilibriums. You have a series of punctuated equilibriums that seem to get that seem to build on themselves faster and faster and faster. So it's not that you have a continuous exponential curve. It's that you actually have a series of S curves that then generate newer and faster S curves. So like, and if you think of humanity, like humanity was essentially a technological singularity that nature itself accidentally invented. That's what humans are. Like 4 billion years of evolutionary history, and not once was a computer invented. Not once was a car invented, and humans did all of this in like a couple hundred years. So human beings are actually, we live in, basically right now we live in a world that is post singularity. At least from the vantage point of looking at the rest of natural history. A little bit like how the advent of multicellular animals was actually a point of singularity. In the same way that the emergence of eukaryotic cells from prokaryotic cells was actually it was a singularity, and I think that fundamentally what we're facing right now is another singularity. The technology is getting too good, the processes are getting too complex and intricate. The manipulation from those in power is so subtle and yet so insidious and deep that it becomes very difficult to be a human in the world anymore. And in the same way that the singularity of humans ended up wiping out a lot of species because we just came to fucking dominate the planet, I think that we're basically coming up against exactly this. And this is what we're facing. We're facing the technological singularity. Back when I was 14, I was super excited about it. Now that I'm no longer 14, I realize just how potentially catastrophic it can be. I mean, I still believe in it, but now I don't believe in how exciting it is. I think it's Jesus Christ. I think it's going to be awful for most people. But yeah, I want to point that out. I think that fundamentally what this is we're coming up against the singularity, and it's going to be an S curve, and it's going to suck, because the thing about S curves is that they tend to also be kind of a choke point for all living beings involved. So there that is. But all right, so we've seen what the World Economic Forum is about. Clearly, Breaker and I, neither of us are in favor of this fucking group.
I'll just remind you of good old Sam Harris that we did a video about not that long ago, criticizing him, rightly so, about his comments on the Trigonometry podcast. Like, it's that type of person that's like, the person that doesn't care how many dead children are in Hunter Biden's basement because Trump bad. That's like a desperate clinging to acceptance because he wants to be let back into the fold. He wants to be stopped calling racist and Islamophobic. He wants to get back in with the lefty crowd. So he's desperately throwing out the bones, hoping that they'll pick them up, and saying Trump bad very, very, very loudly to his intellectual detriment, I would argue, and you would probably agree with me, that his Trump derangement syndrome is fucking legendary. But that's the archetypal type of person that is going to be doing the deep fakes and putting the dead children in someone like Trump's basement because right-wing bad. That's the type of person that will do it.
That's exactly right. But all right, so we just spent an hour going through the little clip that the WEF posted to make themselves look good, even though I don't think it makes themselves look good. But here's something that actually does make the WEF, I believe, look decent, right? It's not this fake PR generated advertising bullshit that makes you think that they're good. It's actually this. This is the it's called the Brave New Quantum Economy. This was published July 19th, 2022. And I thought that we'd have a look at this. I doubt that we're going to get through the entire video because that little PR video that we just watched was like 4 minutes long, and it took us an hour to get through it. And this is like a 50-minute fucking video. So I doubt that we're going to get through all of this, but I did want to go through this. This is as far as I saw, I only watched a couple minutes of it, but it's a guy, and I think he has like some sort of a quantum computing company, and he's saying that quantum computing is going to be like the next revolution, right? You had like the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution, and then you had like the information revolution. And I think that he's right. I think that the quantum revolution is going to be like huge for some reasons that we'll get into. Now, again, I think that this just brings us closer to the technological singularity. So, I mean, can I necessarily say that I'm like in favor of this? No, maybe not really, but I do think that it's really cool because just from like a scientific aspect, holy shit, the applications of quantum computation are massive. And yeah, I wanted to go over this. So let's listen in.
And give us a 3-minute explanation of what on earth quantum computing is and why on earth anyone here should actually care about it.
Sure.
Yay,
so
quantum.
I think the reason that you should care about it is because I believe, as do many others, that quantum computing is destined to be the most profoundly world-changing technology that humans have yet uncovered. So for that reason, I think you should definitely pay attention. It's going to transform, our lives, society, and economy in incredibly profound ways. And
yay, economy!
The reason for that is because it takes problems that are otherwise forever impossible and makes them possible. And those problems span
yay, possible problems
that we have.
Well, so this is true. There are problems that exist that fundamentally cannot be solved by computers within linear time.
Yeah, I know what he's saying, but the weird way that he worded that, if you caught it, it's like, it'll make problems previously impossible possible. So it's basically going to create new problems. That's what he said, if you pay attention grammatically. He said it's going to create new problems that weren't possible before.
Well, all right.
I know what he tried to say, but grammatically he kind of like said it in a weird way where it technically means
well, whatever. That doesn't matter. Look, the fact is that there are problems that exist that cannot be solved in linear time by traditional computers. So I think that the most famous example of this is, say, the traveling salesman problem. So that's the idea where it's like, let's say that there's 100 cities that you want to visit. What is the most efficient route that you can take to visit all of the cities while traveling the least amount of distance? Now, this becomes incredibly difficult to solve because it effectively it becomes a combinatoric explosion. You have to go, okay, beginning at this city, then what's the distance from me to the next city, and what's the distance from me to this city and that city and that city, and then for each of those cities, what's their closest city, and then for each of those cities, what's their closest city, and you end up with just an insane number of possibilities, and you have to look at many of the possibilities, not necessarily all with advanced enough algorithms, but you have to look at a lot of those possibilities, and it becomes an incredibly difficult problem to solve. Quantum computation through magic is able to solve these, and I say magic because I could kind of get into, like, I'm a biologist. I'm not a quantum physicist. I understand, I would say, a decent amount of quantum physics. So my understanding would be that basically you have you put the entire fucking thing into a superposition, and then you allow it to collapse, and by allowing it to collapse, you find either the most efficient solution or like one of the most efficient solutions. It's something like that, and like that's how it works. And basically, for anyone that isn't a quantum physicist, we can just label this fucking magic because it might as well be. And yeah, so this is going to end up being an incredibly important technology. And I do want to point out, by the way, that there's also kind of a parallel work that is being done when it comes to, I guess, neural networks. And then there's another parallel that's being done when it comes to, I guess, bringing back analog computation, because it turns out that for a lot of these neural networks, actually some amount of analog computation seems to be very important. The human brain also works via both analog and digital computation. So, the action potential where like a neuron decides to fire and then it goes down the axon, that's essentially a digital signal. Whereas the dendrites that actually link into the body of the neuron, that is effectively an analog signal. So it appears necessary to have both analog and digital signals in order to create like a truly advanced AI. Then you take that, you make a neural network or some sort of evolutionary algorithm out of that. You run it through some sort of natural selection process to fucking refine it and teach it and grow it. And then now maybe you add some quantum computation in there in order to like solve certain problems in a very small amount of time. And who knows how some of that shit could be integrated together to create like a whole new fucking thing. And what you're looking at right here is, taking all these technologies together. You basically have the foundation of creating a godlike intelligence, like a super AI, something that is by itself smarter than all of humanity put together. Like fucking Singularity shit. That's what we're talking about. Like you take all these technologies together when it comes to like where we're going with computation, and it actually gets fucking nutty, especially when they're all integrated together. We are actively creating a fucking beast. Probably a beast that will end up somehow extinguishing humanity or making us pets. If we're not already pets, perhaps living in the pods and eating the bugs is that will be what we are as pets. Who knows? Maybe actually the World Economic Foundation is already run by one of these AIs, and it's actually just the AI like controlling the WEF that is controlling the rest of the shit, and like maybe that's what's happening. Who the fuck knows? But yeah, all I'm trying to say here is that quantum computation is like super fucking powerful. It's like the sorcerer's stone of computing. So, let's
actually, now that I think about it, this is actually like a double confounded problem. Now that you've put it that way, with like the raw quantum stuff, and like just merely on the logical side of this, like collapsing the superposition and getting some type of meaningful data out of that, you're basically dealing with an unknown unknown and expecting to get a known known out of it. Logically speaking, I don't exactly know how that would work. Maybe he will explain it in brief. I imagine he will. And you know the evolutionary analogy that you just made of having like this grown in an evolutionary way? There's actually an even more confounding problem with that, because imagine if you saw a human and you had no idea what a human was, and you were like, okay, how do I make something like you from scratch? In order to make that human from scratch or anything remotely analogous to it, you would basically have to know the totality of all environmental pressures through all that 4 billion years of evolutionary history in order to create that from scratch. You see the problem?
Well, you wouldn't try to make a human from scratch. What you do is you, let's say that you want to make an AI that can identify different types of cheeses from an image, right? So what you do is you feed it some images of Swiss, of cheddar, of Gouda, and then you use basically evolution to like train it and evolve it in order to make sure that it can identify any picture of cheese that you want. And you're not...
see, there's a problem with this.
There's no problem with this. You're not trying to build a human. What you're doing is you're building an intelligence. You're never trying to build a human.
I know that, but I was using human because you brought up specifically the evolutionary analogy. Now that you bring up cheese, it'll be a bit easier, but not that much. The thing about that is that you have to have and be able to quantify and know how to do this. Like, how would you go about making the AI aware of the existence of cheese? You would have to actually understand cheese on a very deep existential level in order to do that. Now, there are some great culinary chefs and minds in the world, but something as mundane as like a wedge of cheese, like a cheese emoji on a phone. Now, a cheese emoji on a phone and an actual physical block of cheese are superficially similar, but there's a very profound difference in those two things that I don't know if an AI would appreciate. It's like, okay, we need like AI, and if you train the AIs on images of cheese, you're not training it on human perception of cheese. It's going to.
You're right.
It's going to be able to trick you very convincingly. It's like, I know what cheese is, but it knows what you want it to know of cheese.
Right. That's because you're not training an AI to understand cheese and the taste of cheese and the complexities of cheese, and why it is that aged sharp cheddar is better than mild cheddar, and why it is that mozzarella is basically mozzarella no matter what, because it's a fresh cheese and it's not aged, so it all fucking tastes the same. And in fact, if you drink some milk that's like a little bit old but not quite spoiled, it actually tastes a little bit like mozzarella. You're not training the AI to do any of that shit. You're training the AI to look at a picture of cheese and identify, yes, I say with 98% certainty that is Swiss. I say with 67% certainty that is cheddar, and maybe fucking 28% chance that it's Gouda, and then like a 4% chance that it's Colby Jack, right? Like
here's the problem.
That's the purpose of the AI.
I know exactly what you're talking about, but here's the problem that I'm bringing up. Now, you and I could do this trivially easily, and we would still know what's happening. But take that picture of cheese or image sample set that you sent the AI to train it on cheese, invert the image and invert the colors. Then it's going to go from your cheese sample set and having this Bayesian understanding of cheese to 0 instantly. Whereas you and I, if we took pictures of cheese, flipped the cheese picture upside down and inverted the colors, we would still see cheese.
Right. Well, I mean, once again, you have to you would have to train the AI to be able to handle that, right? Like you would have to give it.
Now you have to add, in addition to cheese, you have to have chroma-colored variants and phase-shifted variants of color and perspectives and the infinite propagations of angles from any side it could ever see a piece of cheese ever.
Hold on. Okay. Within biomolecules, there's such a thing called chirality, right? And this is kind of like inverting the image. You have you have left and right-handedness of molecules. So, for instance, like you can have amino acids, the building blocks of proteins, but they can actually be flipped in their chirality, and then they can't really be integrated. You can you can have the same thing, I believe, with nucleotides, where they're flipped in their chirality, but they don't work within like evolution. Even though they're only flipped, biology is like, I don't know what the fuck that is. Fuck that. I'm not dealing with that. This is kind of the process that you have when it comes to these sort of systems. Like, fundamentally, there is not a lot of difference between evolving an AI that has like a specific code for how its neural network works, and just like evolving DNA and how its genetic code works, right? So like, of course, the chirality of the molecule will mean that like DNA can deal with left-handed versions but not right-handed versions, and maybe the AI can deal with like regular images but not inverted images. But that's how shit works. Like that's not surprising. Like none of that is surprising.
I'll say one last thing before we continue the video. We're going to be here all fucking day. In order for AI to actually comprehend something as simple as cheese, it would have to reach the point where it can look up in the sky and see a cloud that vaguely resembles a cheese wedge. Say, hey, that looks like a cheese wedge.
Bro, you are not saying anything here, okay? Do you believe that DNA itself comprehends what the Earth is?
That's actually a more complex question than what you may be assuming.
I do not believe that DNA, the molecule, is able to understand what the fuck the Earth is. I don't think it understands that it's a planet that goes around the sun. But it doesn't matter, because DNA is really fucking good at surviving on Earth. It does a particular task pretty good. That is, like, the thing that I think is important to understand is that when it comes to making an AI, it's not about making an AI that is at the level of intelligence of a human. It's about making an AI that is the level of intelligence of life, right? And life is smart, but it's not necessarily conscious. It could be conscious, maybe, I don't know. It depends on how you want to think about it. But it's not about making it human-level intelligent. It's about making it intelligent and adaptable enough to be able to do the same shit that nature can do, right? And that's the thing. That's the thing that I think is important to keep in mind. Okay, I just do you understand my point here, Breaker?
Yeah, I think from like an evolutionary science perspective, that's pretty accurate. But the last thing I'll say before we just start the video again after this, because fuck it. The convergence of these digital and analog systems back together into something usable, especially in something like a quantum computer, there's going to have to be some type of Bayesian level understanding that In some cases, you have no way of knowing and discretizing exactly how many. Signal will actually be indistinguishable from noise, and sometimes noise itself is going to be a necessary component of the signal up to a certain strength.
It
and
always
you don't
is.
necessarily, you don't necessarily, though, this is where the digital kind of fucks up on this, you can't quantize that discretely in like a binary format exactly what this threshold of seeing a cloud that looks like cheese and seeing a block of Swiss and seeing a cheese emoji and the differentiations between all those things. There's more useful noise that coalesces into signal in something like the human mind.
All right. Breaker, I believe that I disagree with you, but we're just gonna fucking march forward anyway.
Yeah, we've got to fucking go.
Have today, and that's a pretty well unprecedented dynamic that you can expect to happen there, because if you're taking problems of extremely high value that have been impossible to solve and will be forever impossible to solve until we have quantum computing, then you're going to have a profound disruption in a majority of industries, and that will affect our planet, and I would contend in predominantly positive ways. So you mentioned in your introduction the prospect for different applications, and I think in climate, in healthcare, and in energy, we stand as humanity to benefit massively.
Climate, yes. Healthcare, yes. And I think he said shit. What did he say?
It just won't die.
The prospect for different applications, and I think in climate, in healthcare, and in energy.
Climate, healthcare, and energy. Yeah. So healthcare, yeah. I mean, not necessarily in healthcare, but in like the biomedical sciences and biomedical research. It has massive applications because protein folding. You can use quantum computers to figure out how it is that proteins are folding, and perhaps how it is that proteins would misfold. So that sort of like that actually has massive implications, because right now, like, ask yourself how it is that we understand the structure of a protein. Well, there's a few ways that you can try to figure out the structure of a protein. You can try to do so computationally speaking, but it's extremely weak. You can do crystal shit, what the fuck do you call it? God, I'm retarded. Mass spectrometry. You can do something like that. But even then, you're crystallizing the protein, and you're not actually like truly visualizing its structure in an aqueous environment. It's very difficult to understand protein structure and protein folding. As by the way, something that I've been involved in, understanding RNA structures. It's just about impossible at the present moment to understand the structures that RNA actually create, because they have like these like hairpin loops and whatnot, and actually this affects how the RNA is read throughout the cell. Depending on how the RNA is localized, it you can have like structural changes to the folding of the RNA itself. So a quantum computing can actually get us there, where we can understand how it is that RNAs and proteins are folding, and that's going to be literally a quantum leap in the field of biomedical sciences. That's going to be fucking huge. So I agree with him on that. When it comes to the energy sector, I'm not exactly sure how it is that that's going to improve things drastically. Like, I mean, we already pretty much know how fucking, like, nuclear power works, or, like, maybe it would help with like, fusion, maybe, I guess? Like, it might help with fusion, but I don't think it's going to help with, like, fission reactors or any sort of, like, petroleum-based, turbines. So... yeah, I mean, it has applications, but it's not like it makes everything better. It's not Midas's touch, right? It's very useful in very specific applications, but it's like it's not going to reinvent the wheel. Like, the wheel is the wheel. It's good.
And also another thing about that, if you mix this in with medicine, you could inadvertently create, like, a direct competitor, because remember when you liken this to an evolutionary process? Well, if you take this weird quantum computer AI where, because it's quantum, there's always going to be this unknown element to it, where you don't really know what's happening in the guts of this thing, but it spits out useful information, let's say on the other side, when you run your code through it. Whatever that process is doing, if it's anything like an evolutionary process, who's to say that its quote-unquote interests are in any way aligned with yours, and especially in something like the medical field?
No.
Yeah.
No, Breaker, no. The quantum aspect of quantum computers is unrelated to any sort of natural selection. This is it's a totally different concept. But
I don't know. People like Roger Penrose might disagree with you on that.
And potentially someone like JF might disagree with me on that, because his belief is that even before the replicator of RNA was some sort of quantum replicator, right? But we're not talking about that. What we're talking about is it's basically the engineered ability to use quantum mechanics to solve problems, right? So that's like saying, oh, well, like, you don't know how a calculator works. Like, maybe there's going to be some sort of evolutionary process in the calculator that gives you a different number than, like...
Oh, I'm not even saying something as complicated as that. All I'm saying is, like, okay, say, hey, computer, why don't you help me work on this new medicine? And let's say the computer helps you work on the new medicine. It's like, hey, the computer comes back and said, hey, I found this specific chemical chain folded in this way, yada, 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 will actually help treat this disease that you want this medicine to treat more effectively. And you say, oh, thanks, computer. And then you start using that medicine. You might not exactly know what the long-term consequences of that was, because you kind of removed the human element for that brief moment from it.
Right, but no, that's the case with every medicine, because people just fucking happen to find new compounds and then they test them, and it's not like the entire thing was theorized by a human from the ground up. Like, that's literally any medicine. Any medicine can have unintended consequences, and this would be no different. Look, let me lay out some things that I believe that quantum computation would have huge effects on. So I mentioned, let's say, biomedical applications, looking at protein folding, RNA folding, things like that. You have mathematical things where it's like something like the traveling salesman problem. It's a purely mathematical idea, but it can solve that. You can look at chemistry, seeing how certain molecules are more or less able to bind to other molecules. You can actually simulate that with greater certainty about the result. You can potentially even look at something as abstract as like an economy or an ecosystem, and it might still have applications in that sort of thing. Hell, it might have some applications in like neuroscience. It has applications in, obviously, like This is probably one of the most well-known ones, one of the least interesting, mind you, but one of the most talked about is the ability for a quantum computer to break cryptography. Basically the way that that certain codes are like encrypted is that you have to find the factors of an extremely large number, and so you could basically break most of the currently existing encryption techniques with a quantum computer, because it can, in a very short amount of time, as opposed to exponential time, it can actually, in linear time, find common factors of an extremely large number. Of course, I'm pretty sure that they've already invented ways to encrypt things that are resilient to quantum computers, so I don't think that's going to be a big deal. Off the top of my head, those are the major ways that quantum computation will affect certain areas of technology, and of course AI. Of course AI is going to be massively affected by this. There might be other ones, but those are just what comes to my head. So anyway, let's keep watching.
Yay.
We stand as humanity to benefit massively from this technology.
Right, well, I'm going to come back and talk about the use cases in more detail and the risks as well. But, I mean, even by the standards of, you know, hippy-dippy Silicon Valley hype, saying that you think this is going to be the most profound technological shift for many decades is remarkable. Do you think this is potentially even more significant than the launch of artificial intelligence?
Yes, I do. And as you said, you know, I've been in this business for a long time. 27 years ago, I read about the prospect for quantum computing to bring about a revolution comparable to agricultural, industrial, digital revolutions, and I think that is really true. And I can explain a little bit why I believe that and why plenty of others believe that.
Okay, give us your elevator pitch.
I mean, he's totally right.
With a whole bunch of venture capitalists 1,000 times already, if not your own mother.
Yeah, well.
Okay, and you've got like 2 minutes.
Well, I'll pick just one application, and that's chemistry. And my conviction.
Oh shit.
Is that we can't do chemistry until we have a quantum computer. Now that's deliberately provocative, and it's also deliberately true in the sense that if you cannot simulate the building blocks of the world that you find around you, or the world that you want to build, as we cannot with chemistry, then what are you really doing? It's the equivalent of trying to do advanced engineering and technology without the aid of a conventional computer. And if you need some proof that we are at an extremely primitive stage with chemistry, you just need to look at the natural world around you. Life over billions of years has used exactly the same tool set that we have. They got the same chemistry set that we got, and over billions of years has evolved to be able to perform, you know, miracles like, you know, turning sunlight into energy, turning water and nitrogen into ammonia to fertilize plants, reproduction, and so on. And the task for us is extremely challenging.
So I want to point out, I thought that was based as fuck. It's like, yeah, that's true, man. Like, here's the thing. Human beings, we can create, like, you know, these like big ass solar panels or whatever, but our highly engineered big ass solar panels with all of these like rare earth metals that we have to put into them, and like they only last like 10 years. Thing is that plants, they made an even more effective solar collector. And they didn't have to use any rare earth metals. I mean, they're just using fucking carbon and oxygen and shit. Like, completely beyond human engineering. I mean, the photosystem 1 and 2 of like the photosynthetic chain, they operate via quantum mechanics. It's actually it's a protein that operates on the quantum mechanical level, and it is so far beyond human science and technology. It's fucking crazy. And nature just kind of shat this stuff out because you know it made the plant better, made it live more, and that's, I mean, that it's just, those are facts, man. Those are facts. I think that's fucking based what he said.
Very interesting. It would kind of go hand in hand with this modern, like, grossly excessive commodification and consumerist culture that we have. Strangely enough, it's as though, in a weird roundabout way, humanity and all this quote-unquote progressive claptrap that we hear, there's a lot of ways in which it is profoundly correct in a strangely eerie way, isn't it?
Yeah, potentially. All right.
On a conventional computer because, the problem grows exponentially. So large instances of chemistry are forever beyond reach of any conventional computer that we can ever build. Okay, chemistry, it's a subject from school. It underpins everything that humans do. Everything, whether it's a molecule in our body, it's a material that we want to deploy, to tackle climate change or healthcare, you name it. We need that chemical explanation.
This guy's spitting
we're going
facts.
to look back on our pre-quantum computing world and wonder how on earth did we survive, never mind sustain a population of near on 10 billion people with those primitive caveman tools that we were using back then.
Okay, so our iPhones are primitive caveman tools. Try telling my team.
I don't know anything about this lady. I'm sure that she's very nice, but I hate her face. I don't know what it is. I don't like her. Just right off the bat, I look at her face and I go, I don't like you.
And watch how fast all of these people turn on that the second it says something like, you know what, I've analyzed certain faces of certain populations of humans, and I find them strangely similar to a certain primate species. Imagine when the computer says something like that, all of these people will be like, oh, clearly a white man programmed that.
That is offensive, and also an issue that engineers have had with AI.
Strangely enough, isn't it? It's almost as though the truth itself sometimes is just innately offensive, and these fucking ideologues will never fucking crack that particular ideological nut, and they'll go out of their way above and beyond to obfuscate it, if anything.
Potentially.
But I'd like to turn to Jack. I mean, one of the things everyone says is, this sounds extraordinary and amazing. You're taking in the idea of quantum physics and applying it to computing. You're going to get superpowers with computing. It all sounds very, very Star Trek. And it's probably like 5-10 years away. But you say that you're already deploying some version of this right now. Can you tell us what you're actually doing? Again, if you can keep it to 2 or 3 minutes and make it intelligible for the non-scientist, you get a brownie point.
Sure.
Oh, fucking A. It's not... They're not saying anything that is, like, super high-level advanced. I don't know why it is that she's like, oh, yeah, we can talk about fucking economics and, like, large-scale systems and, like, how it is that the government ought to control the economy all day and, like, really, like, advanced shit. But then the minute that they start talking about science, they're like... Make it sound like you're talking to 12-year-olds, because people are so dumb.
See, this lady fucking gets it. She's after my own heart on this shit. If you remember what we talked about before the show, you see how she understands it, but she picks her words very carefully, and she's really politically correct about it. She's basically saying the same thing that I often say to you.
That people don't understand science. Yeah, I mean, I get it, but I don't think that people like being talked down to either. Like, she's basically going, all right, pretend everyone here in this room is like incredibly fucking dumb and just condescend to them and use the simplest metaphors that you possibly can, because that's how you should explain science. I don't like this. I don't like this at all, but there it is.
Usually when we talk about quantum, we have champagne or wine in the room because it's much easier when people have been drinking.
Champagne!
Silicon Valley has psychedelics.
We'll do our best. We'll do our best here.
Yeah, get the psychedelics, get the fucking mushrooms.
Is that building what Jeremy said?
Bro, 100%. This is what you do. You go to the World Economic Forum and you spike the punch bowl with shrooms.
Don't actually do that. That would be chemical terrorism. We do not advocate terrorism onto public space.
Right. But in theory, if you were to spike their punch bowl with shrooms, I just feel like, actually, man, like, you know, they would all just like chill out. They would like have like cool conversations with one another, and then like a few of them would be like, "Hold on, man! Like, why are we like trying to like control all the shit? Like, shouldn't we just like, you know, like let things go and just like let the chips fall where they may?" And then like the other person would be like, "No, man! Like, I like to control stuff." But then they would like in their head they would be like, "Oh, you know what? Like, man, I'm saying that, but like maybe that's just my ego talking. Like maybe we shouldn't want to control stuff." I swear to God, just give them some fucking shrooms, let them have a little bit of ego death, and talk with one another, and I think that they would emerge as being a lot less evil. You know, that's what I think.
Well, it seems to be like Joe Rogan's general consensus on this type of stuff among Terrence McKenna and certain other people that he's advocated for and talked about on his show, and the psychedelic crew that Joe Rogan has had on occasion. Like, they all seem to think, even Sam Harris, weirdly enough, seems to think this type of thing. But I want to direct your attention to something I had to do a few minutes ago, that disclaimer I had to give about don't actually go to any large gathering of people and put substances of any kind that are not fit for human consumption and or might cause some type of extreme psychoschematic reactions. Never do that. But I have to put that disclaimer for two reasons. One, because we can't advocate for doing this shit on YouTube. And it's not just the YouTube rules either. It's the fact that somewhere in the world there's a non-zero chance that some random paranoid schizophrenic might listen to this and actually think that we're the voices of God and may make some type of attempt to do something like that in real life. So we have to be shielded from liability by giving a disclaimer to where any reasonable person would be able to understand the disclaimer. But
well, okay,
yeah, that proves the point that some people are just not only stupid but dangerously stupid.
Well, in that case, I can just say this. Yes, we are the voices of God, and God is instructing you to not fuck with people's shit. And
you need to wake up. You've been in the Matrix for too long. It's time to wake up.
Yeah, you've been in a coma for the last 10 years. We don't know where this message will find you, but please wake up. All right.
Said is that beyond just quantum computing, there's other quantum technologies that are here and now that we also need to bring into this conversation. So when we think about quantum computing is a core bedrock, but we also have, for example, quantum sensing. And in quantum sensing, we can build diamonds that instead of just being made of pure carbon, we dope in some nitrogen, we make them slightly different, we grow them from scratch in a facility. These are not from the ground. And we can use these diamonds as very sensitive magnetometers. And what can we do with these? We can actually detect, for example, the very faint magnetic signal of your heart. Everyone here, I'm sure, has had an ECG, electrocardiography, but now we can do MCG, magnetocardiography.
What the I've never had an ECG. He's saying everyone here has had an ECG? What the fuck? Breaker, have you ever had an ECG?
I don't even know what the fuck that is.
Yeah, exactly. What the fuck? I mean, I know what it is, but it's not like that's... I don't think that most people have had an ECG unless they're like above 60 and you have really good insurance. Okay, all right.
I haven't even had an MRI.
Well, I think that actually an MRI would be more advanced than an ECG, but I
have had an ultrasound once.
Oh yeah, when you were pregnant. Yeah, I remember talking to you about that.
No, it was for another medical reason that I shouldn't be too specific about because doxing and everything. But let's move on.
And one of the reasons why cardiovascular disease continues to be one of the top killers in the world, here in Europe, in the US, around the world, is that we don't have good enough diagnostic devices. But going into the magnetic realm, using quantum diamonds, using quantum sensing, we can now start to do that. Another application that we can do again in the near term is navigation around the world without GPS. Right now, Russia is blocking and jamming the signal of GPS over Ukraine to frustrate the Ukrainians. But using the orthomagnetic field, we can actually navigate. Birds do that, whales do that. We, humans, can now do that.
Oh,
so
shit.
Quantum sensors are,
I didn't even think about that.
right now in clinical trials, so we can do these things in the very
First they had to bring up Russia and the Ukraine.
Russia is the evil and Ukraine is the good.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and I bet that actually some of this quantum shit would probably have applications in graphene as well, which would be pretty dope. Yeah, like this is like a huge technology. I think that it's up there with fusion power, right? It's like, and we're on the cusp of both of these. Like it's always 10 years away, of course, but man, dude, if we could get, like, I think that within my lifetime, I think that we will get large scale quantum computing. We already have quantum computing, but like large scale, like fucking kiloqubit computing, maybe even megaquibit computing, and then you also get fusion power. Holy shit, we're on our way to a Kardashev Type 1 civilization if we can get that shit like fully implemented. That's going to be huge. Like, you wouldn't like understand.
But first, you have to make absolutely sure that it's not racist.
That's true. Look, that's the issue with modern day nuclear power plants. Do they emit any amount of carbon? No. Do they provide an insane amount of energy for what you have to put in? Yes. Do they actually cause the least amount of deaths per kilowatt hour? Yes. But I guess that they're racist, and that's why the World Economic Forum seems to be against the use of nuclear power plants.
Wait a minute. I figured out a solution to this. I don't know if this would actually work in a practical application, but this might be an idea that you could potentially run with, well, the right kind of person, when you understand very quickly why. Basically, nuclear energy was technically first pioneered. The concept of how nuclear energy worked was first pioneered by
Germans.
No, not just any German.
The German Jews.
Yes, German Jews specifically. So if you're against nuclear energy, you're actually anti-Semitic.
Oh my god, you're right. That's a good point.
It's bulletproof. It's ironclad. It can't fail.
I also do want to point out that the little World Economic Forum trailer that we watched during the first half of the show, they were talking all about climate change and about how we need to fix all these things, and they were showing us pictures of solar farms and wind farms and how that's the future of the economy and energy and how we're going to revolutionize the world. Not once did they show a nuclear power plant. I want to point that out. Not once did they show the best answer to the energy crisis, which is fucking nuclear power. I don't know why. It makes no sense to me, but I guess...
But it's really strange because, the Jews are basically a nomadic people, like a diasporic people that have wandered all over the world. So if there's any group of people that would understand radically changing climates over long periods of time, it would be the Jews.
And they provided us with the answer in the form of nuclear power. Yeah,
exactly. This just compounds that all these people are fucking anti-Semitic. Stop being anti-Semitic.
That's right. Anti-nuclear power means you're anti-Semitic. I can get on. I will ride this train. I think this is facts.
Exactly. But anyway,
when it comes to quantum computing, it's a critical, fundamental technology. We are the first generation of humans that will not only have wonderful activity in the bits world, but also now in the world of atoms. And as just building on what Jeremy said, it's critical to not just the chemistry also of the body, but also, for example, material science for clean tech. If we want to have better batteries for electric vehicles, better batteries to store renewable energy, we need to simulate these kinds of molecules and atoms in using the quantum equations. And this is why this is a fundamental shift in how we do computing.
I do want to point this out. So, Breaker, we have batteries, right, that can actually store energy on like the gigawatt scale. And these are massive fucking batteries, right? like the size of towns. Like we
They're
literally
huge.
we have batteries.
They're terrific. They're so big. They're so lovely. You're gonna love them.
We literally have batteries that are the size of small towns, if not bigger. And they can store like so much fucking energy. Now, Breaker, here's the question: what form do you think these batteries take?
I get the feeling that this is kind of like a bizarre trick question, but it's not really meant to be. Massive stores of energy all around the world. What could that possibly be? It wouldn't happen to be some type of natural resource, would it?
Well, it might, yes.
Is it a totally natural resource, or is its components and its architecture somewhat synthetic?
Components of the architecture are somewhat synthetic. It's not entirely natural, no.
Oh, you're just talking about nuclear power, aren't you?
No, I'm not. No. Nuclear power is an energy source. I'm talking about batteries. A thing that you can store energy and then release energy from, but it doesn't create energy.
And it's somewhat synthetic. It wouldn't be fossil fuel, would it? I imagine that the explanation to this is a very simple thing.
Yeah, it's super simple. So, this is the... this is basically the best battery that we have for storing very large-scale amounts of energy. This is what you do. You take some water, and when you have excess energy, you pump it up. And then when you need the energy, you release the water, and it like falls down basically like a hydroelectric dam, and then it falls down. And so you're cycling potential with kinetic energy. It's literally just water. You can pump water up to store it, and then you drop it down, and then you get the energy back. That is the most effective and efficient battery that we currently have for large-scale applications.
Wait a minute, you said the components were somewhat synthetic, but that's just hydrogen and oxygen.
Well, right, but we had to build the dam. It's partially synthetic. It's not just the water.
I see.
That is, as far as I know, the one of the most efficient and also economically efficient batteries that one can build. Has nothing to do with lithium ion or anything like this. Nothing to do with some advanced form of graphene. It's literally just pump water up and then let it fall back down. And that's it. It's very simple, but it works. It works incredibly well. All right.
So just to give a sense for the audience, are you actually using it right now in products? Can you pull out of your pocket or out of your computer or cyberspace a product and say, here we are, this is being used with quantum computing and quantum principles? Because I think many people are confused about this.
Sure.
I know that Jeremy is talking about sort of, products and ideas that are probably some time away yet, but, is there anything tangible right now?
Yeah, with quantum sensing, we have built devices now, here now. They're in a hospital right now in clinical trials. So quantum sensors are very near term. We don't need millions of qubits. We don't need error correction. We can build those today. And one hope of this panel is to broaden the conversation about quantum from just quantum computing, fundamental, but also now include many other quantum technologies. If you've been in an MRI machine, you've been in a quantum sensor. MRIs were built by physicists using quantum principles. That's a previous generation quantum sensor. Very large, cryogenic, has to be cooled down to minus 200 and colder. But now we can have room temperature quantum sensors. So this is very much, Jillian, the next few years, very much here now. We have built these devices.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. As soon as we actually create a efficient to manufacture item that doesn't require a shit ton of pressure, for it to be a room temperature superconductor, that is also going to change the game, right? Imagine that we actually create a fucking just a regular room temperature superconductor that can superconduct, and we can just make a wire out of it and just fucking, like fucking build the electrical grid out of these superconductors. That is going to be fucking game changing if we can ever do that. I mean, that's even, I think that we're going to end up, if we can do that, it's going to be actually after like quantum computers, but I'll tell you what, if we could do that shit, that would be insane. It would do so many things. But yeah.
They're in hospitals, in clinical trial. It's things that we will use and will impact all of our lives in the very, very near term.
Right. Before I turn to Freke, I just want to quickly ask Jeremy, when do you imagine your products, your very bold promises, are actually going to materialize? I mean, you're talking about a more sort of pure, almost higher version of this, aren't you?
Yeah, well, maybe I can clarify. I'd like to narrow the discussion, of course. Jack would like to broaden the discussion. But yeah, we have quantum technologies of which, quantum computing, I think, is the holy grail. And then we also have quantum sensing and quantum communication, as Jack is describing. And I would go further than the MRI and describe a fridge magnet as a quantum technology if I was pressed. So I don't want to talk about,
What a fucking burn, bro. What a fucking burn. He just said, hey, all that shit that you said, yeah, you're just talking about fridge magnets. Get the fuck out of here with your fucking
This guy really
sensing.
understood it. He knows that people are idiots, and he even thinks that smart people are idiots because this guy really, really gets it.
This guy's like, no, that's bullshit. You're talking out of your ass. I'm talking about fucking quantum computation, bro. What the fuck are you talking about? You're talking about fridge magnets? Get the fuck out of here with your fridge magnet shit. All right?
He circled all the way back around and horseshoed that motherfucker.
Ah, what a good fucking retort. I didn't expect to have that amount of banter at the World Economic Forum, but brilliantly done. I fucking like this guy.
I want us to talk about, but per your question, I'd like to just focus on quantum computing, which is distinct. But Jack is absolutely correct. There are a multitude of quantum technologies.
Like fridge magnets.
Quantum computing requires,
exactly,
as far as anyone knows, that million qubit regime that Jack has alluded to. And that's extremely challenging, as you can imagine.
So it's not right here, right now?
It is not here, right now. Today, the world of quantum computing has around 100 qubits.
Right.
And there has been a lot of hope over the last 5 or 6 years that people could find something useful.
Yeah, I mean, straight up, like they got 100 qubits, but I've been following quantum computing for like a while, and I think it was about 10 years ago they had like 6, right? Like about a decade ago they had like 6 qubits that they were able to tie together, and he's saying that now we're at 100. Like, dude, going from 6 qubits to 100 qubits in 10 years, like, that's pretty good, right? Like, that's a multiplication of about 20. So, like, in 10 years, they might be able to do 20-fold that. So then you'd be looking at, well, it's 20 times 100. That's 2,000. That's 2 kiloqubits. Maybe within the next 10 years. Shit, maybe it gets better with perhaps with more investment from the World Economic Forum. I don't know, but it's actually it's like it's doing its own more effective Moore's law, right? It's doing its own exponential curve. So I mean that's pretty promising, I would say.
To do with around 100 to 1,000 qubits, that has not so far panned out. It looks unlikely that it will pan out, and that's the source of a lot of confusion out there in the world. Is that many people are of the belief that we have it now, that it's tomorrow, because we have 100 qubits, and with 100 qubits we could be able to do something useful. Right. So far not. The million qubit regime, it's been my personal conviction for more than 20 years that we will need to leverage the semiconductor industry and the 50 years and $1 trillion that went into that industry in order to deliver that technology, and that's what we are doing. And that's why I believe that we're in a regime where well within this decade we're going to be deploying this technology.
Okay, so we already have versions of this, but not computing, in the real world that Jack is developing in medicine and things like that. But the computing version, which is the one that everyone gets excited or terrified by, is within the decade. So that's quite close by World Economic Forum standards. Can I, before I turn to Freke, very quickly want to ask a question that most people asked up front in relation to quantum computing, and is often the only reason people have heard about this, is that if we get these quantum computers within the next decade, will that smash apart the entire current system of encryption?
Yeah, see, this is what I was talking about earlier. The fucking encryption. That's what everyone fucking goes to. Fucking standard procedure. Oh no, the quantum computers are going to break encryption. There are algorithms that have been invented that basically are less susceptible, much less susceptible to breaking by a quantum computer. The modern day encryption would be basically like an open door, but it's like if this technology were to ever, get out there and actually do something, everyone would just change their encryption. It's not necessary yet to actually change that. But let's hear his response.
In the current world, that's what everyone really wants to know right now. And will the whole promise behind Bitcoin and DeFi collapse as a result? You each have a minute to answer that, and I want to Freaky.
So I'll give you bad news and good news. The bad news is, yes, quantum computers break the RSA and ECC encryption standards that we all use today. So, RSA has had a good run. 1978 till today, 40 plus years, pretty good run for a tech standard. I think we'd all agree. But we now have to transition from RSA, the current standard, to the post-RSA quantum safe. And here's the good news, Gillian, I want to share, which is that the world bodies, the countries, about 40 countries, got together about 6 years ago, recognizing this issue, came together in an open process with academics, industry partners, and governments, and said, we've got to find a set of standards that are quantum safe. And this past January, just a few months ago, they completed the core of their work. That's why this panel today is so timely, because just in 3 weeks from today, we'll get the first 2 of those standards coming out of these government bodies. These are the quantum safe protocols that are what you can use for e-commerce, for encryption, for re-encrypting all of the patient data that we have in hospitals, for re-encrypting all the intellectual property that we have, and also for starting to use in secure communication as well. So,
yo, I'll tell you what. If this happens, Bitcoin might actually die. But then what about Qubitcoin? Qubitcoin, right? Like, bro, someone has to invent the Qubitcoin.
Well, wait a minute. Wouldn't qubit coins be infinitely fungible and therefore non-usable as currency?
No. It's just Bitcoin has a traditional encryption behind it, whereas a Qubitcoin would have a quantum encryption behind it, where it couldn't be cracked by quantum computers. So, like, all I'm saying is that Satoshi needs to get back on his game and invent the Qubitcoin.
Upcoming cryptocurrency scam is the Qubit. Okay, if it's a weird guy on YouTube with funny sunglasses and even more fucked up haircut trying to sell you Qubits,
then you know that you need to invest in that, because that's the most trustworthy guy. That
we do not give financial advice on the public space.
No, that's not financial advice. But I'll tell you what, man. Not financial advice, but... And maybe this already exists. It's possible that this already exists. But if someone invented a cryptocurrency with an encryption that is quantum computing proof, then I think that I would specifically want to invest in that.
So bad news is, yes, we have to now discard RSA and all the stuff that we were using before, and particularly because of SNDL, store now, decrypt later. We have to move now, even though the quantum computers are not here yet. We have to move now because the adversaries are exfiltrating our information, even though it's encrypted. They're storing it on their servers to decrypt it in a few years when they have the computing capability. That's the urgency of why the governments of the world are issuing these standards today.
Well, there's nothing like terror to force collaboration. Freaka, how terrified are you? How much of a risk is the idea that basically all of our encryption devices that are working on our computers and phones all of that's about to collapse.
Yeah, let's hear from the woman, man. Like, what the hell? She doesn't got anything to say.
I'm not scared because I think the positive applications of this new technology are way up against this risk. And I mean, yes, it's true. We have to get to the new standard of encryption, but it's like an upgrade. We can do that. We've done it before, and the standards are there. We're getting prepared. We just need to do it. And we need to focus on the positive applications because it's amazing what this new.
Oh my God, this lady isn't saying anything. We need to do it, and we need to focus on the positive applications. It is important, and we need to focus on the good things and not the bad things. I am personally in favor of things that are good, and I am in favor of the things that are bad. Fuck yeah. Okay, so. We've reached about the 2-hour mark. I don't tend to like to go too beyond that. Yeah, this was the World Economic Forum, and it was interesting. I think that this is to show that although overall perhaps the World Economic Forum is a potentially evil organization that is run by mostly sociopaths who want to tell you how to live your life rather than allowing you to make your own choices in how you live your life. There are potentially like 1 or 2 good conversations that can occur, and you know, we only got like a third way through this video, so. I would recommend that everyone watch this. Once again, this is the Brave New Quantum Economy from the World Economic Forum. They have a YouTube channel called the World Economic Forum, and this came out July 19th, 2022. So if you want to listen to the whole thing, then you can search that up. And I thought it was really interesting and something worth going over. As shit as the overall forum may be. So.
Yeah, and with that, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And every time you ring the bell icon, it's an investment in 1 Quibbit.
1 Quibbit coin. 1 Quibbit coin. You get 1 Quibbit coin every time you hit the like button or ring the bell.
Yeah, and considering how fucking everything is an NFT now, I guess, like, that bell icon is basically a free NFT. And I don't even have to say it's financial advice because they're fucking free. You can have as many as you want. Just ring that bell.
And not only will you get an NFT, you'll get a QuinFT.
Exactly. Then you won't have to be constantly annoyed by those weirdos on Twitter that when you right-click and download their fucking bored apes, they complain about copyright theft. Avoid all the hassle and get your own Quibbit today by ringing the bell. Every time you look at your YouTube account, you see that bell icon rung. That's basically your NFT. Just grab a screenshot, and if you make it your Twitter profile, though, make sure no one right-clicks and downloads or you're fucked.
All right. Well, with that, everyone, if you got to this point in the video, thank you very much for listening. You are the true MVP, and we will continue to release videos on roughly a bi or even tri-weekly basis. And yeah, with that, peace out, everyone.
Yay, don't forget to give me your opinion, Super Mario. You know who you are.